What's up, guys? How are you doing? It's Charles, and I'm really excited for today's video because it's my first YouTube video, and this one's gonna be about preparing for your language and literature paper one, particularly about photography. So yeah, let's get into it. So here's the sections for this video. I'll start off with that epic introduction. Then I'm gonna talk to you guys about how you should analyze photographs, how to structure the essay, looking over the rubric, and I'm gonna show you guys my practice test to see what you guys can learn from it. And we'll go over some common mistakes, my test predictions, and some study resources that can better prepare you for the paper one. Yeah. So when you're analyzing photographs, these are things that you need to know. The photographs are literary works, okay? So you need to analyze them using the techniques. And that makes the photographers the authors. That makes them the artists. Their choice to put something in a photography is a conveying a message. And photographs are not just pictures, okay? It's a literary work. It's really important to know. And lastly, gotta remember, Mr. Borgi is always right because he just is. And here's some good vocabulary I put together that I think is really useful when looking at a photograph for the first time, especially in paper one. You've never seen this photograph before. And when I look at it, I try to identify what type of photography is it, what is the composition, and what elements are in it. And it really helps me find those good photography techniques to analyze. So, yeah, really useful vocabulary to know, especially if you like photography. But it's also really nice to know for in general and also for this exam. So let's start off with some really common photography techniques that are going to be useful in exam. I think so. So first of all, it's the content. So what's in the picture? What do you see? And I promise it's going to be people there, okay? Most likely and hopefully. And of the people you see, how many are there? What is the mood? What's their body language? Their facial expressions? What's their gestures? What are they looking at? Of the objects in the picture, of the photograph, what are the symbols? What is might it be a metaphor, a symbolism of something? What's the visual imagery? What's the color? What's the contrast? So there's a lot of things that you can identify using the content, and make sure to mention these photography techniques to make your analysis stronger. Also, the focus. There's lots of different types of focus, and every one of them conveys a different idea to the audience. For example, selective focus. The photographer might try to get us to try to focus on the subject more. And an interesting thing I researched was shutter speed. And I don't think it'll come up, but it'll be really cool if it did. And basically, it's when it's moving and how long the light is exposed to the camera before the picture is taken. So if there's a blur behind the motion, that's a slower shutter speed. And it's really interesting to know. And it might just come up on exam. The composition. So a composition is the placement and the positions of everything in the photographs. So where is this picture? Where is this photograph set? Is there any juxtaposition, like things of opposite things placed next to each other? What's the focus point? What's the center point? Is there any symmetry, repetition, reflections? What do they tell you? Um, does it use the rule of thirds, the golden ratio? It's my personal favorite because you can basically say like the rule of thirds is applicable in every photograph. But composition is another thing you can analyze. What about light? Where's the light coming from? Is it bottom lighting? Is it top lighting? Where's the origin of the light? Is it natural light? Is it artificial light? What are the shadows? Shadows typically mean darkness. It's something bad. What about the silhouettes? Are there any silhouettes? And what is the atmosphere that the lighting tells you about this photograph? What angle is the shot taken? It might be from eye level, it might be from high or low angle. When it's from a low angle, it means that thing is bigger. When it's from a high angle, it looks smaller. It means it looks weaker. You know, what is the photographer trying to convey through these angles, and also the distance? How big is a shot? Is it a long shot, medium shot, close up? If it's a really long shot, it might make the character look more isolated. If it's an extreme close up, it might be conveying about emotion or detail. And I think these are really useful when analyzing your photograph in paper one. And here are some cool analytical terms I put together: visual narrative, visual hierarchy. I'm not going to go over these, but it's really useful to know, and it'll be really cool if it comes up. So it's high level vocabulary about photography that you can use. And here are some more photography terms, particularly about analyzing photographs. So it might have a bokeh. That's Japanese. It might have a Dutch tilt. It might be a panoramic. So also really high level terms to know, and hopefully you'll be able to use. I don't think there's any way it'll be still wolf photography, but I just put it up there because I thought it was a really cool idea. Now to the next part. How do you structure your essay? So, for the introduction, you want to start off with a hook. A hook is basically like a sentence that's relevant to your thesis and relevant to the author's choice and relevant to the message the photograph is conveying. One sentence, two sentences is fine. It doesn't have to be crazy hook. It can just be short. Like Daniel, his hook, he made up a statistic. Don't do that. That's weird. That's not good. Okay. Don't make things up. Just a short description about or a short like idea conveying that's close to the message is good enough for a hook. And also, you want to mention the purpose, the audience, the context, the text type, and probably year if you have it, and style in the introduction. So I'll show you guys an example later. And most importantly, you want to clearly state your thesis at the very end of your introduction. So this was a paragraph I got from Mr. Borgi's slide, and it doesn't look really good because I didn't even change the theme, but you can see on which parts of this paragraph, the introduction focuses on all the things that are mentioned. And also, here's a screenshot from a video from the IB English guys who are really smart. And these are the things that they're looking for. You know, they're IB examiners and they want to see these different highlights in your introduction. So you might want to focus on being clear on establishing that you have a topic. You want to mention the author and audience, the text type, the year, the purpose. You want to mention back to the guiding question and have a transition before you mention your thesis. So that's basically an introduction. Now, structuring your essay. The most important part of your essay is going to be your body paragraphs. You know, it's like the meat. And in a IB essay, in a paper one especially, they want these different ideas to make sense. So logical flow is really important in a lot of the criteria. So you'll lose you lose a lot of marks if your ideas aren't connected together. And there's a lot of different ways that you can structure your essay to better adhere to logical flow. So you can structure it by section, by idea, or technique. But I really don't suggest structuring by technique because the technique, a lot of different techniques can be used for multiple ideas. And if you're just limiting yourself to one technique, then you're missing out on a lot of analysis. So I would structure by section or idea. And especially for photographs, you want to structure, I think it's best to structure by idea because it's difficult to structure the section of a photograph because it's just one thing that you see. You know, there's no like stanzas or there's no paragraphs or there's no like act one, act two, act three. And you want at least 3 points, three body paragraphs that convey your ideas that are connected to each other. And by the way, these screenshots from LitLearn, and I'll link it in the description below. It's really useful to help. And Mr. Bordy has a Google Drive on paper one in his classroom. Another important thing I want to tell you guys is remember to transition between your body paragraphs to actually let the examiner know that these ideas are connected. And I'll show you guys in my practice essay, it was a mistake, which I didn't do well. And lastly, you don't want to forget the caption. So the photograph comes with a caption, and I've been only talking about photographs for now, but the caption is also part of the literary work. It's also part of the author's choice in conveying a message, so you do want to mention things about that as well and what you can analyze about it. Lastly, you want to have a conclusion. So what happens a lot of the time is you're writing a lot of body paragraph and you run out of time when you're writing a conclusion. But I really think you should leave like a few minutes at the very end just to write a really quick conclusion down because you want to show the examiner that you can form a complete essay. And from the IB English guys, these are the different things I want to see in your conclusion. So you want to transition to a conclusion, you want to focus back on the guiding question and the main points and synthesize what you were talking about. And finally, mention back to your topic, the audience, and the author. So a conclusion doesn't have to be very specific, it doesn't have to be very detailed, but a good run through is good enough, I think. And you will run out of time. So yeah, in a lot of these exams, you're trying to get down as much as you can. So I really think that you get down as much as you can and then you leave some space to like some time to quickly get a short conclusion down. That will really help get your grade, especially in criteria C, I think, for organization, because you want a complete coherent essay. Now, here's the rubric overview and what I think about it. So, A, interpretation and understanding. So, how good is your thesis? How good are your ideas? How much did you get down? So, Does your evidence support your ideas well? That's your interpretation of the photograph, and does it make sense? And for photographs, Mr. Borgi said, and I agree as well, because you can't really tell somebody that they're wrong for interpreting a photograph this way, but do try to back it up with good evidence and make it a logical essay. Criteria B, analysis and evaluation. So, are your techniques good? So, remember not to just write about the things you see, but mention photography techniques and the message it conveys to the audience. And are at least meaningful analysis to like connect back to your ideas. Criteria C, focus on organization. I think criteria C should be one of the points that we can try to get off most of them, because as long as you follow a structure, I think it'll be quite all right. So you want to make your essay logical, and does the order make sense? So you want to make the ideas connected to each other throughout the photograph. And that's the criteria D, language. Your grammar, your spelling, your usage of vocabulary. So basically, are you good at English? And I know a lot of us, especially if English isn't our first language, we might struggle at this, but there's nothing like you can do except for like try to practice using English more and looking at some resources maybe. Yeah, and here are some slides from Mr. Bordy's presentation. I copied them directly, and he doesn't even add a border in his screenshots. But yeah, these are what you want to achieve. If you want to get fives, the paper one is out of 20 with 4 criteria and 5 marks for every criteria. So this is what the IB tells you that what you need to achieve to get a 5. And I'll just show it right here. Sorry. All right. Now, here's another overview on criteria D. So, some things you just want to look out for: your subject verb agreement, your spellings. Don't use slang or informal words. You want to remember your punctuation, especially the Oxford comma. Remember, okay, Mr. Bordy is always right, so you gotta adhere to his rules. Don't use contractions. Contractions are like can't, shan't, shouldn't. Don't use your personal pronouns. Don't say like I think. That's really not good for essay. And do try to use as much high level vocabulary as much, but remember not to be repetitive and be concise in your wording. So speak in an active voice and try to get coherent ideas down in the best way possible, but not use informal words. And if there's a suitable vocabulary, use it. Don't like force it in, because that's not gonna add any points. Now, I want to show you guys my practice exam. So when you guys read it, and you guys think about it, what did I miss? What did I do well? And how could I have improved? So this was the photograph that was in a practice exam, and I have the caption right here. So an adolescent girl takes a break from selling trinkets in Manjebura. So it's in Sierra Leone. And she sits near 3 boys by a river where girls wash clothes and boys fish. Girls who are not in this school and work on Sierra Leone streets help support their families, can be particularly at risk in a nation where crimes against them often go unpunished. This was a caption, and it was photographed by Stephanie St. Clair in 2021 for National Geographic. So here's what I wrote. First of all, I didn't have a hook. That's a problem. That's bad. And also, I didn't mention the odd. I didn't mention the audience well, and I didn't get a lot of the text types and the purpose down very coherently. So my introduction was definitely lacking and could have improved. Additionally, I basically took my thesis from the longer part of the caption, which Mr. Bordy said it wouldn't be there most of the time. So I have to make sure that I could get these ideas down even without the help of a caption. Next is my body paragraph 1. So in this one, I was talking about the vulnerability of women. And here I said something bad. I said, by using photography techniques. He said ZZZ. Okay, he thinks it's boring, and I agree. So definitely try to get your topic sentences like clearer on the idea you're trying to convey. And over here, I mentioned on the isolation of the girl and the boys on different sides, but I didn't mention a clear photography technique and its effect. So I didn't analyze that well. Next, for body paragraph 2, I talked about how cultural traditions oppress women. Some problem with the photograph was Okay, I said the low angle shot made the girl seem bigger and larger. That's kind of redundant because it's good, and I think it's given on how the effect of a low angle shot has on the audience. But maybe I could elaborate more on the effect of a low angle shot, but not just repeat how the angle makes a photograph feel. And add another weird interpretation where I said the girl's woolen dress symbolizes the girl as a sheep, which is a victim of traditions and gender norms. Now, again, it's hard to say like your interpretation of this photograph is wrong, but I think it would be justified to say that this argument wasn't backed up by a lot of evidence, well, and I don't have any expertise on clothes. I really don't know if it was made out of wool, so I probably could have left that one out. But yeah. Now I want to show you guys that for this paragraph, I had a transition at the very start. So my first paragraph was about violence, and my next paragraph was about tradition. So I said, while violence poses a threat to women. So I'm making sure that the conveying idea, like it has a logical flow throughout my essay. But I didn't do that for body paragraph 3, okay? I forgot to add a transition, and it probably cost me some marks. But my body paragraph 3 was about poverty, and I think my analysis and evidence was more complete in my last body paragraph, even though it's a bit short. So normally you want like 4 pages on your essay, and my essay was only 3.5 pages approximately. So it would be nice if I could practice more and get more of my ideas down. But basically, some strong points I had in this part was um, I alluded how the caption was selling trinkets, and I compared it to the girls giving up on education, so selling their education in order to support their families. And I also mentioned how the repetition on the traditional dress implies that the tragedies repeat across families and time, impacting countless women. So that was my body paragraph 3. And my conclusion, I didn't have a lot of time to write it, but here it is, and it's kind of weak. And as you guys can see, the holistic grade was a 6 out of 7. So after reading my essay, I didn't read the whole thing, but you guys can slowly read it. Was the essay lack good? In hindsight, there's a lot of things that could be improved on. There's a lot of things missing. And did I deserve a 6 out of 7? 6, 7. Sorry. Um, Probably not, probably. But again, this is a practice essay, so it doesn't really count. Will I learn something from it? Yes. I think it's really important to go back to our feedback and reflect on what you could have done better. And there were some clear points that I definitely could have done. I definitely knew how to do, and I didn't do. So that's a part I reflect on. And man, I hope you guys had some like things that are common with me that you guys can say, oh, I don't want to do the same thing as him right here, or like have a part where like you guys look at an essay and say, oh, I should have done this thing just like it. So hopefully you guys can learn something from my practice exam, and you guys can grade it yourself and think like, if I was writing this essay, well, you guys all wrote it, but you guys can look at the photograph again and think about this essay and reflect on it as well. So maybe you guys learned something from it. Hopefully you did. And yeah. Next, thought of some common mistakes for every criteria. So okay, try to get 4 pages down. That's like, this time is pretty short, but you don't have to waste time going around. You want to make a quick outline and get on writing. You want to support your ideas strongly, and you want to make sure that there's a logical flow, particularly in the design of your thesis. So again, the thesis is probably the most important part of the entire essay, and your body paragraph should back it up logically. Now, common mistakes for criteria B: mention your photography techniques and mention the author's choice. So say something like, for example, Stephanie Sinclair, we want to say like Sinclair uses this to convey the message. So we don't want to just say this photograph, this part of the photograph means that something. Again, that's not very literary. That's not literary analysis. So you want to be more coherent and conclusive in your photography techniques. Criteria C: you want to refer back to the guiding question. So the guiding question for that was, how did the photograph and caption convey this message? And you want to keep mentioning the keywords that were spoken to make sure that the examiners know that you didn't go off topic. So you want to stay on track to the topic and surround your essay around the guiding question, which was the prompt. And lastly, for criteria D, um, just adhere to your common standard English conventional rules, your grammar, use good vocabularies, and be concise, and just don't suck at English. I mean, just try to get better at English, and with a lot of practice, I think there's a everybody can improve on their English capabilities. Right. Now, I'm sure you guys are all waiting for this about my predictions for what'll come up on Thursday. And I think the themes will clearly be about either masculinity or femininity. So it'll be something about gender roles. Because gender roles is something we've been focusing on this unit, on the school year already. We've read A Doll's House, The Mask We Live In, and the National Geographic by Pete Muller, The Many Ways Society Makes a Man. So I think since we're focusing on masculinity and on gender a lot, I think it'll probably be a common theme that comes out across the photograph that Mr. Bordy gives us. And if it was not gender roles, I think the second best option would probably be something about the environment and what's changing. So we read Solastalgia, and right now we're reading The Word for a World is Forest by Ursula K. Le Guin. And yeah, I predict that these are the themes that will come up, and you can prepare for these by probably looking at vocabulary or common ideas that occur throughout these photographs. Um, I think the techniques that will come up, I think there will be symbolism and allusions that you can make in a lot of photographs. Um, I'm guessing that it will might just be a long shot and high angle shot to show like isolation and inferiority, but that's maybe a wild guess. But it's just my prediction. I think that there might be a role of lighting because there's light in almost every photograph, and it's a very powerful tool. So I think you could definitely analyze a lot of good things from that. And lastly, the rule of thirds, it's so applicable, and I think it'll be good to be very prepared in your analysis. Now, which photographer do I think would it be? I really do think it might be National Geographic. Um, we've been doing them all year and on the entire unit, and they really have a lot of different photos to choose from. And here are some famous photographers that work for them that focus on topics including like environment and like gender roles. So Pete Muller, Kitra Kahana, Muhammad Muhaysen, Stephanie Sinclair, and Robin Hammond. I think these are some really established photographers that their photographs like is linked to our unit. So I think their photographs might come up, and I predict that the photo will involve gender roles. That's my final prediction. And Daniel thinks that this particular picture of Indian woman sheltering from a dust storm might come up. So yeah, these are our prediction exam. But again, um, you can't really prepare for these because you aren't supposed to act. And I mean, you aren't supposed to like try to guess the photographs anyway. You want to test your capability of identifying and analyzing on the spot. But I think a really good way to prepare is to like grab a lot of photographs and practice with them. So I think if you get enough practice down, it'll really help out on the actual exam. And lastly, I'm gonna give you guys some study resources that will be very helpful in the preparation. So we have this YouTube channel called the IB English Guys. And right here, they gave me some really useful feedback saying like breathe and relax on your paper one top 10 tips for success. I'm just saying, okay, thank you, man. Like I know to breathe and relax. But honestly, they have a lot of very useful content about paper one on there, and since it's my start, my first YouTube channel, shout out to them, and I would love a collab. Yeah. And also, Lit Learn, it's also on Google Classroom. These two are both from Google Classroom, and I think I'll just show you guys again. Lit Learn is written by this guy called Jackson Huang, and he tells us how we should structure our paper one really well. It's in the Google Drive and Classroom. I'll link it again. Apparently, Jackson Huang scored an IB 45 and was accepted to Harvard and a bunch of other top colleges. So he's really qualified and he's so cool. Yeah. And lastly, subscribe to the channel, okay? This Pete Muller, he's manifesting every day 7. So thank you so much if you guys watched till the very end of this video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the like button and share it with your friends. Comment down below on maybe like what subject or what content I might make a video on next. I really enjoyed making this video, and I hope you guys have a great day, and also I hope you guys all get a 7 on your exams. So, yep. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.